Mr. Hilliard, the clashes between the Black Panther leaders and the police are now the subject of at least 3 investigations, one by the Justice Department, one by a group of black congressmen, one by a group headed by former Supreme Court Justice Arthur Goldberg and former Attorney General Ramsey Clark. What do you hope for from any or all of these investigations?
We hope that these investigations will serve as a convincing indictment against the oppressive United States government and its killer police. The Black Panther Party has all along said that the police were the main forces of oppression in our communities, and also we had made a trip to New York City to the UN last year to apply for NGO status. So that it has become very clear that the government is working in cohorts with the local agencies, the police, and in a brutal attempt to try to liquidate the Black Panther Party. So out of that investigation, we hope to bring the truth to the American people so that we can have peace in our communities.
From CBS Washington, in color, Face the Nation, a spontaneous and unrehearsed news interview with the Chief of Staff of the Black Panther Party, David Hilliard. Mr. Hilliard will be questioned by CBS News correspondent Ike Pappas, Bernard Nossiter of the Washington Post, and CBS News correspondent George Herman. We shall continue the interview with Mr. Hilliard in a moment.
You think it won't happen to you. And then it does. Everything you've worked years for is smashed in a day. You're in trouble, and you need help. Continental Insurance can't give you your house back, but we can help by getting an adjuster to you fast. Continental has adjusters all over the country, ready. And when a disaster strikes, we'll fly as many into the area as we need to get to you fast. When you're in a spot like this, that makes a difference.
Mr. Hilliard, all 3 of these investigations are being conducted by people either in or very close to the establishment, the Justice Department, former officials of the federal government, present members of Congress. Do you really think that one of these investigations will find what you claim oppression by the government against the Black Panthers?
I think that already the black congressman headed by Congressman Diggs has shown concern for their own national salvation. Of course, we do not have faith in the Justice Department because the Justice Department is a symbol of injustice as far as its black subjects are concerned. We refer to Goldberg as a fox that watches over the chickens, so that we do not expect any equality, or we do not expect justice from the other individuals, but we do have faith in our own people, and the very fact that they've come forth to try to bring out the criminal indictments against the police and the other agencies of the United States government shows, if nothing else, it shows solidarity with the black people. So we see that as being victorious.
Mr. Hilliard, you speak of the criminal activities of police, but don't the Panthers stock and collect guns themselves? Isn't this an invitation to the police to take action?
First of all, the Panthers do not stock guns. We're very aware of the gun laws. We advocate each individual having a shotgun in their homes as spelled out under the Constitution of the United States. It's not our purpose to assimilate large catches of weapons. If we had weapons, we would distribute the weapons in the community for self-defense. But we do not have armories. And even if we did, we would expect the same treatment under the law that's given to members of the Ku Klux Klan, people like the Thornsons or the Birchites.
Mr. Hilliard, the Justice Department denies what you say, that there is an organized attempt to destroy the Black Panthers. But if what you say is true, how successful has it been? Has this campaign been against you?
I don't think that we can say that it was successful. What it has done is that it brought to the attention of the American people the atrociousness of the American government in terms of its subjects, people moving for their freedom. The very fact that they attack us so openly shows that they're a very brutal people, that they're a barbarous criminal element within society. But as far as their successfulness is concerned, they're not successful. They could never exterminate the Black Panther Party, because the Black Panther Party is not just a party for itself, but rather it's a party for the people. And
well, most of your leadership has been either jailed or is in exile, or some of them are dead. There's a leadership gap, obviously, in your organization. It seems to me that if there is a campaign against you, it has been successful to a certain point.
Well, most people would like to think that, especially the enemy. But we're satisfied that they could never exterminate the Black Panther Party. In order to do that, they would have to commit genocide, because what we're working for is already spelled out within the Constitution of the United States. We're asking for the basic necessities for human life. So therefore, it would be impossible for them to exterminate or to really have a successful extermination campaign against our party. Our party is manifested in the people.
Mr. Hilliard, you say that what you're after is manifested in the Constitution, and yet you personally have said that you advocate the very direct, forceful overthrow of the government. You're under indictment, as I understand it, for advocating the assassination of President Nixon. That doesn't sound to me like it's all within the Constitution.
What is within the Constitution is our right to free speech.
Yes.
And as far as my threatening the president, this is a violation of my First Amendment right. I did not threaten the life of the president. In the context of a speech that I made, I stated very emphatically that we would kill anyone that stands in the way of our freedom. And of course, the newsmen and the news media is another instrument by which the government dupes and narcotizes the people. So the very fact that the newsmen themselves are ideological lackeys for the system, they have mouthwashed the criminal elements in this society, and they have made the victims look like the criminals and the criminals look like the victim. I never said that we would assassinate the president.
Do you feel Richard Nixon is standing in the way of your freedom?
I think that anybody that picks up guns against the oppressed people, or anybody that endorses programs that maintain the oppressive structure as it is in the way of our freedom.
Is that Richard Nixon?
Richard Nixon is the chief spokesman of the American people, and if the man is not responsible for the people in government, like the FBI agencies or the local police, then he should stand up and let the American people know that he do not endorse the kind of campaigns that's been waged against black and other colored people in the world.
Point clear. Are you saying that you were incorrectly quoted when you were quoted as saying we should kill President Nixon?
I'm saying that my whole speech was taken out of context, and this is nothing new. I think that the policy that the United States has adopted is the same policy put forth by Adolf Hitler, the big lie policy. And the big lie policy is to take things out of context.
Well, whether this statement was taken out of context or not, was it a statement that you made, Mr. Hilliard?
It was a statement that I made in the framework of a lot of other words, so that the rhetoric, as stated, was adjoined with some other words. But I did not specifically say that we want to assassinate the President of the United States. We're not that stupid.
Well, I don't want to belabor this point, but I was in San Francisco. I was at the Moratorium Day ceremonies, and I heard you make the speech. And within the context of what you said, I believe it went, we will kill Richard Nixon. We will kill anyone, any blankety blank, who stands in the way of our freedom. And it's a very simple question. Do you think Richard Nixon is standing in the way of your freedom? Number two, would you kill him?
I would say this. I would say that Richard Nixon is the chief spokesman for the American people. He's the highest official in this land. If Richard Nixon stands in opposition to freedom guaranteed to us under the alleged Constitution, then the man is designated as enemy. But I did not, and I will not here, I will not take the responsibility to say assassinate anybody.
Well, what you're suggesting, Mr. Hilliard, is that this was a metaphor, a figure of speech out in San Francisco. I'm
saying that it was political rhetoric. We can call it metaphor. It's the language of the ghetto. This is the way that we relate. Even the profanity. The profanity is within the idiom of the oppressed people. So that in the context of that speech, I said that, and I'm not going to take that back.
Okay, well, then let me ask you this. Are your revolutionary slogans, on these two metaphors, is this also rhetoric? Or do Panthers literally believe that a violent overthrow of the government must take place in this country?
Let's just say this. Let's say that we could have our freedom without a shot being fired. But we know that the imperialists, that the fascists on a very local level will not withdraw from the arena without violence. They have proven themselves very violent, and thus far they haven't done anything to ensure us our freedom. We do not ask for violence. We were in the forefront of peaceful demonstrations, starting with Dr. Martin Luther King. So that the very fact that we even enjoined in the November 15th demonstrations for peace abroad, while right here at home we're being victims of attacks day and night by the criminal agencies manifesting the police departments. So that we do not advocate violence. Our slogan is that we want an abolition to wars, but we do understand that in order to get rid of the gun, it would be necessary to take up the gun.
You say that you don't favor violence, and I gather that what you're suggesting is that you only use, in your view, your weapons for defensive purposes. Is that correct?
That's right. We have.
All right. If this is so, then why does your party newspaper, and I see you have a copy of one in front of you, use as a repeated slogan, "Kill the pigs"? Doesn't this suggest to an unwary reader who isn't aware when you're being literal and when you're using metaphor that indeed it is their duty to go out and kill police?
There's nothing in this paper that say kill the pigs. We only advocate killing those that kill us. And if we designate our enemies as pigs, then I think that it would be justified to kill. See, what you people do is you turn the terminology around. What you try to do is you try to make us all violent and you people all civilized and peaceful. But what we understand is that it's all right to use violence if you're using violence for a change for the better. So we make a distinction between the reactionary violence manifest in the system, the main oppressor of all mankind, and violence used in behalf of the oppressed people to throw off their shackles of colonialism and oppression, so that violence on our part would be justified.
But without trying to put my own interpretation on it, let me ask you your interpretation of this quote, which I find in a newspaper attributed to you. I don't know whether it is correct or not, but let me read it to you when you say, "We advocate the very direct overthrow of the government by way of force and violence, by picking up guns and moving against it, because we recognize it as being oppressive, and in recognizing that, we know that the only solution to it is armed struggle."
Let's say this. Let's quote from your very same Constitution where you say that when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such governments and to provide new guards for their future security. Now, this is from the Declaration of Independence.
Are you saying that time has now come?
If it was good for the American people, then we say that it's good for the oppressed people of the world.
You saying that time has now come? That rate of oppression has now come?
I'm saying that the time has come when the masses of the people have been pushed to the wall, when they cannot any longer redress their grievances through the legal political machinery of this country. We're not the decision makers. The masses are. If the masses think that it's time to overthrow the system, then there's nothing you or the president or anyone else can do.
How many Black Panthers are there?
We don't usually throw those figures around.
Well, can you give me a rough idea?
We said we have about 30 chapters throughout the United States.
That would be what, 5 or 10,000 people?
It might be. It might be more than that.
Do you have the feeling that this small group, 5 or 10,000, really represents the masses of the black people?
No, I'm saying that the ideas spelled out in our 10-point program and platform represent the basic desires and needs of the people.
How do you know?
Because these are ideas taken from the masses. These are not just a bunch of abstract ideas that fell from the sky and ended up on our paper. This is a survey. What we asked for are things that were promised to us over 400 years ago.
But aren't some of these things that you have down on the paper in your demands and so forth there, aren't they some of them paraphrases of Mao Zedong and Che Guevara rather than the black masses?
There's nothing here that paraphrases per se Mao Zedong or Che Guevara, but the ideas, the desires are asked for, the aspirations in our program are the same that all oppressed people in the world ask for, and that's freedom and self-determination. The ultimacy is national salvation.
Mr. Hilliard, there are 20 million black people in this country, and if you say you have maybe 5,000 or even 10,000 members, That's still not 20 million. How are you going to get them, the rest of the black people, over to your side? We understand that you're having difficulty getting people to join with you in your philosophy.
Well, first of all, I never quoted you any figure. I told you that we had about 30 chapters. But our program is the method for organizing the people. We're organizing them around our 10-point program, a program that spells out the basic desires and needs of all people. And the very fact that the Black Panther Party is a party that relates to internationalism as the key to eradicating racism in this country shows that we're much stronger than even you imagine.
Mr. Hilliard, is your back really to the wall? Here are you on national television. Here are all kinds of moderate black groups that have come to take up your cause, at least on the legal side. Doesn't this indicate that perhaps this society is much more responsive and much more open to legitimate demands than your rhetoric sometimes suggests?
I don't think that television is the big payoff. We could ask for a lot of other things. More so than television, I would rather be in our communities feeding hungry children, sitting up trying to erect institutions that would educate the people, the children in our community, so that they would not have to wage a war in your name or his or this man's, or for that matter, the President of the United States. What we're for is peace, and that's the ultimacy of our goals.
Let me go back to the guns question, if I may. If police departments the country over staffed the ghettos with black policemen who lived in the community, would you then feel safe, and would you then be willing to lay down the guns you now carry?
So you don't understand at all. First of all, we've made it clear that we don't make any distinction between black policemen and white policemen. The police is the symbol of the state. The police's duty is not to protect the people in the community, but rather to protect the property owned by the capitalist class, so that you have black servants, and that we don't make any distinction between the black lackeys who are servants for this system or the white people that are servants for this system. We don't advocate an all-black police department, because we understand that in our communities there's many ethnic categories of people living within the boundaries of the community. That what we do advocate is if the people police the community, therefore they should live in the community, and that the people should have control over the local police in their communities. That's the philosophy of the Black Panther Party.
All right, under those conditions, would you lay down your guns?
We would have more reason to lay them down than under the present circumstances, let's say that.
What stage is the revolution in right now, as far as you're concerned?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I see the revolution still at the educational level, because the masses of the people are still being duped. They're still being politically deformed by the ideological degeneration put forth by the journalists and the newsmen.
Do you have a timetable?
Well, revolutions are not blueprinted. What are you talking about?
Well, in other words, you're trying to build a popular base now. Is that right? You need support.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to wage a mass educational campaign. And we recognize before any revolution there's got to be education. But I would like to say that there's no blueprint for the revolution. We're prepared to struggle 40, 50 years, however long it takes.
Isn't this food program that you have and feeding children and so forth, I'm sure that everyone will agree that children should be fed. Children don't have food, and people who don't have medical aid should be given medical aid and so forth. But don't you provide an indoctrination also with the food, that the children are being indoctrinated into your philosophy and so forth, that when they grow up they'll be big Panthers?
What you call indoctrination, we call education. I say that they're being indoctrinated when you tell them to pick up a gun and go 10,000 miles and shoot somebody that never even called them nigger. What we do is educate them. We educate them to their own environment. We don't educate them about historians that are completely rejected, completely removed from their environment. We educate those people and those young people about the conditions in their community. We show them very physically the conditions in the white mother country, as sometimes referred to, and the situation in the black community. We show them and we point out to them the evildoers and the lawbreakers supposedly manifested in the peace officers. And we show them very concrete and real contradictions, but we do not indoctrinate them, we educate them.
Mr. Hilliard, the party, the Black Panthers, are subject, I think you yourself have charged, of almost unexcelled, unbeaten FBI scrutiny. How badly are you infiltrated? Are there FBI men or whatever throughout all of your organization?
Well, see, first of all, let's make very clear what we're talking about. There's both ideological infiltration,
yes, sir,
and then there's cultural infiltration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we have any FBI agents in our national headquarters. I know that in New York City, they wiped out the whole organizing cadre, which numbered some 21 people, so I'm sure that there's some agents there. But in our national headquarters, I'm content to believe that we have a dedicated core of people working for the betterment of their black people.
There's been a lot written about the attempts of the Black Panther leadership to use a truth serum or drugs and so forth to check the honesty and the legitimacy of its high leadership. Doesn't that mean that you're somewhat worried?
I don't know anything about truth serum. I'm not sure that truth serum would be the kind of chemicals necessary to even make people admit if they were agents. I don't know the
Frankly,
validity of truth serum. I'm not a doctor or a physician.
How about the New Haven case where the police charged that Black Panther leadership kidnapped, beat up, and finally executed a Black Panther informer?
What about the Reichstag? Huh? What about Reichstag?
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
burning of the Reichstag. What about Charles Poole?
What I meant was, is there this kind of action against possible informers anywhere in your organization?
Well, let's say that it's not necessary for the Black Panther Party to use this kind of torture and this kind of animalization. But let's say that it is a weapon that the United States government uses in order to vilify the Black Panther Party, same as they use in Vietnam with the Sung My massacres, the same as they use in any other country where they want to first vilify the people, then isolate them and commit acts of atrocities or genocide against their people. We do not use those kind of tactics. It's not in the benefit of our party. Our party is a party, as I said, that's loyal servants to the people. We're up at 6 o'clock every morning feeding hungry children, trying to put forth point 7 of our program to remove or to control the police in our communities. We don't have time to do the dirty work for the police. I say that the police killed Alex Rackley.
Mr. Hilliard, in the world you want to build, let's say it came about, would you permit a dissident group to carry sawed-off shotguns, to carry automatic weapons?
I would say that there wouldn't be any need for people to carry weapons anywhere on this planet Earth if the government was a government for and by the people. The very fact that you have a very one-sided government that only satisfies the needs of a few, a ruling class clique that manipulates the whole world, makes it necessary for people to pick up anything they can to ensure another day of life.
But where in the world is there a government like the one you're talking about, where there's no need to keep an eye on the people?
I'm sure that there's I'm sure that there's some examples. In my travels, I think that Algeria would be more of a model type people's government than the present form of tyranny.
There are no dissidents, nobody in jail there?
Of course they have jails, and we cannot imagine a society without authority. We do not say that. What we do say is that as long as the people have some self-control, as long as the people are getting 3 meals a day, as long as they are employed, then I think that it would put an end to the many robberies, to the killings. And you can check that out for yourself. There's records. They don't have near as many crimes in Algeria as they do here.
Mr. Hilliard, talking of the society that Panthers want to build, your colleagues frequently tell me that they draw their inspiration from Marx and Lenin. Do you, and what does this mean to you if you do?
Well, we see Marxism-Leninism as being a science, a very advanced science, and that we recognize that Marxism-Leninism is not a dogmatic ideology, but rather it's a guide to action. So that the philosophy of the Black Panther Party is not a philosophy that reflects the history of China, of Russia, or Korea, or Cuba for that matter, but it's the historical experiences of blacks right here in this country interpreted through Marxism-Leninism. So that we see Marxism-Leninism not as a dogmatic dogma, but as a guide to action.
Mr. Hilliard, what kind of support does the Black Panther Party receive from such countries as Cuba, North Vietnam, and so forth?
Resistance against the common enemy.
Well, is it in the form of money, guns, propaganda, or what?
We haven't ever received any money from the People's Republic of Cuba, or China, or Korea. And one of the reasons we haven't is because the intermediaries, the United States government, has ripped it all off.
How about Algeria? I don't know whether you left some out on.
Well, they control the mail that comes from Algeria too. So we know that it's impossible to get any money from Cuba or from Algeria or from Russia or from any other country.
Have you been offered
because of the United States government.
Have you been offered it directly?
I'm sure that those people would give us anything that we ask if it was possible for us to get it. But seeing as though the system is set up and the United States government as being the initial recipients, we would never receive that. They're thieves, and they put their talons, their claws on it, and we never see it.
But you mean to tell me that in a country into which morphine and heroin is smuggled in every day, that you couldn't get some help in from these other countries?
Well, we don't go to the extremes to do that. First of all, we see our struggle as being one of self-reliance, and we're not dependent upon anybody else financing our struggle. We said that the best assistance we can get from all the countries you mentioned is their resistance against U.S. imperialism.
Given the raids and the jailings of Panther leaders that have taken place, really, has your organization any kind of a future?
We see that it has more of a future than this country.
Your Minister of Information is now in exile, Eldridge Cleaver. You speak with him often on the phone, is that correct?
Well, you know I do. They tap the phones. The phone is probably hooked up to the White House.
Can you tell me why he wants to come back to the United States, or does he?
I can't tell you. Eldridge has never told me that he wanted to come back. The man is completely satisfied where he is. He doesn't have to worry about his parole.
Why did he file for a passport?
What?
Why did he file for a passport?
Because he's a right to it. He's a right to a passport.
But for what reason?
He's an American citizen, so that he can travel around, so that he can have identification. You know, as he left, he didn't have any identification at all because he left under.
Does he want to go to another country, perhaps, besides
I think that he would like to move around. It would be in benefit of our party and both elders to move around. The man don't have to be marooned on an island somewhere.
Mr. Hilliard, as a result of all the newspaper publication about the killings of Black Panthers, as a result of all these investigations, suddenly the Black Panther has gotten the support, at least verbal support, of a whole group of moderate or even conservative black groups. Even the NAACP now seems to have some kind words to say for you. Do you welcome this? Do you court it?
Of course we welcome it. We see our struggle as being one.
Well, the reason I want just very little time left, and I just wanted to ask you, will your welcoming this support make any change in your own policies?
Our policy is still self-defense and national salvation. We welcome it because it shows very clearly that even the most moderate American blacks have finally realized that this is the most atrocious, the most barbarous government, the #1 enemy of humanity. So therefore they're moving with all the forces of resistance against the common enemy, and that is, in this case, U.S. fascism.
Thank you very much for being with us today on Face the Nation.
Right on.
Today on Face the Nation, David Hilliard, Chief of Staff of the Black Panther Party, was interviewed by CBS News correspondent Ike Pappas, Bernard Nossiter of the Washington Post, and CBS News correspondent George Herman. Next week, Senator Fred Harris, chairman of the Democratic National Committee, will face the nation. The CBS Sunday News with Harry Reasoner will come your way tonight at 11, 10 Central Time on most of these stations. Face the Nation was recorded yesterday at CBS Washington. Who won the Battle of East St. Louis? CBS News documents the unusual encounter in a full-hour special Tuesday night at 10, 9 Central Time on CBS.